I'm good to go. All right, so we've been doing this little series called Good Questions. And today, I know some of you are going to be very excited. I want to talk about science. And some of you are like, oh, great, I don't want to talk. Yeah, I'm going to tune out now, thank you. Listen, it's not going to be like you think, okay? I was watching a show with one of the kids, and my kid one of my kids is really into science. I mean, really into science. Like 5 years old, he's reading about DNA. He wants to understand DNA. He's got this little book called Baby Biochemist, and it's got explanations of how DNA works. And I'm reading this book, and I'm like, I am not qualified to help you through this 5-year-old book about DNA. I'm not like some person much smarter than me and I can't handle this, right? But no, it's interesting. I'm not sure he gets it all yet, but whatever, kid, you want to read about stuff? Okay, this is our bedtime work, okay? And I don't understand. I don't know why, but anyway, we're watching this show, and they're talking about, the history of creation and things. It's his favorite science show. And they get to this point where they're talking about the theory about the Big Bang. Like, hey, at one point, boom, all of a sudden, everything that is in space and the worlds and galaxies, all of a sudden, just like a flash of less than a second, it came from nothing, boom, and exploded into everything. I thought, okay. Well, and then they got to the part where they're talking about how old it is. And they say, well, it's like 4.5 billion years ago, something like that. And they're very careful, like scientists believe that this is a theory and such and such and such. And then they get to the point where they're going to go on with the show. And then this little thing happened where they said, okay, so this is how it happened, and this is what happened, and this is what happened. And I just went, wait. 30 seconds ago, you said this was all completely theoretical, but now you're acting like it's proven. And everything that you say after that is as though it were proven. And I thought to myself, that's not scientific. Now, here's my problem. I am what they call the whoa guy. And some of you out there already know who I'm talking about. Some of you are the guy, you just don't know. But you are the guy or the gal that when people start telling you things, you're logical, you're very rational, you don't find it easy to just accept things when people tell you things are the way that they are. I am the whoa guy. So you tell me, oh, I was doing this thing, and then I realized that this is true, blah, 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 and I go, whoa, wait a minute. I now need to ask you a long string of questions to verify, to confirm or deny your analysis of the situation, because I trust your observations. I just believe that you may or may not have accidentally just left a few things out in your calculations. So I now need to verify everything. So, like, for instance, my daughter will tell me a story about something that'll happen, and she comes home from school, and she says, oh, yeah, this happened, and then they said this, and then they said this, and then that, and I'm like, whoa. Wait a minute. What exactly did they say? Where were they when they said that, and who was surrounding them? Tell me about the different people that were in the room, and tell me, I want all the factors, and at what time, and was there anything else that he was trying to accomplish while they were saying, and consequently, I've been told I'm not very much fun to talk to. What can you do? But here's where I want to get to. If you are the whoa guy, or if you happen to love the whoa guy or girl, I want to help you, because there is an issue, there's a perception out there that if you are a logical, rational, thinking, intelligent, maybe even skeptical person at times, who does not just accept whatever people feed you, that faith and science are actually in this unspoken war all the time. And that if you are a person of faith, that you probably shouldn't be involved in decisions that are important that affect other people's lives, because you can't be a rational thinking person when we have all of this amazing science out there that tells us, well, it tells us a bunch of stuff, it's really important, and somehow the ideas out there, it just doesn't agree with faith. It's incompatible, they're at war. And the people ask, doesn't science disprove Christianity? Doesn't it disprove the Bible? I mean, isn't Christianity founded in the Bible, and doesn't science already disprove that? And my answer to that is, well, no, not really. Actually, when you look at the places where faith and science are supposedly at odds and fighting with each other, it's actually, most of the time, it's actually a sign that a person who practices faith or a person who practices science has actually left behind what they practice and are actually kind of violating their own rules in order to make a statement in the faith or the science of the other one. So many times what happens is, somebody who's very faith-filled or someone who really, really likes science wants to make a statement about how they feel about something that someone of faith or science says. And so what they do is they take what they have and they try to harness the credibility of it to make a statement about the other. So somebody in faith, here's something that people in science are saying, whoever these people are, they hear it and they say, I am unnerved. I don't like that. I feel threatened. I feel like my beliefs are being threatened by what they are claiming. And oftentimes what happens is a person of faith will step out of the practice of faith, and attempt to begin to prove through science that faith is real. And oftentimes someone in science really doesn't like what people of faith are saying, and they're kind of railing against it, and so they'll step into faith, and they'll begin to try and prove or disprove through science that the supernatural is or isn't true. And so what I want to do is read a little bit of your favorite part of the Bible, the hotly contested first page, and just make a few observations for you about what it is and what it isn't. And see if I can't help you have an understanding, if not for yourself, maybe for somebody you really care about, maybe for a conversation that you've been in with somebody, just to help you see how you could help someone frame up faith and science and see they're really not in the war that you think that they're in. Not if it's good faith and not if it's good science. Now, some of you are grumpy already. Just hold on. You don't know what I'm going to say. Come on, you don't know what I'm going to say. Here we go. Genesis chapter 1. The creation account. Moses is working his way through the desert. He's got a lot of time on his hands. And God uses the opportunity to help prepare the people to become a nation. He's left Egypt. You know that old story with the let my people go and the Pharaoh and the plagues and all that? Yeah, in case you're not familiar. They're working through the desert. God has Moses take down most of their history. And this is the account that they had passed on verbally from generation to generation to generation to generation. God says, it's time that we take this down and preserve this for all of the nation. This is your source. This is your history. And this is what's written. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. There wasn't anything there. Nothing. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it, and it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, And there was morning the second day. And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees in the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to the various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years, and let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from dark. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. Now there are more days. There's a fifth day, there's a sixth day, there's a seventh day. Have you heard this before? Yes, you have. Many of you have. I'm not going to read all the rest because I want to make a point. As I read this, me being the whoa guy, I have a few questions. Here are my questions. Well, I can't give you all of my questions because I have so many. How did you do that? That's what I want to know. I want to know, how did you do that? I want to know, okay, wait a minute. Wait, whoa. Okay, so one day. Are you talking about the same kind of day that I know is a day? Are you? Doesn't say. Doesn't answer that question. But I ask, is that the same day? And then I think, well, wait a minute. Now, I'm kind of like a little science-minded, if you haven't noticed. I'm a little bit analytical. So then I think, well, wait a minute. If the sun and stars and whatnot were not created until the fourth day, how did you determine what a day was? Because a day is the earth spins all the way around one time, but if there's no sun or stars or anything else in the heavens as a reference point, how do you know that that is a day? What, you didn't think of that? You didn't? Oh. I thought you all did and you'd all relate. No, okay. You know, I want to know, well, wait a minute. Is that, how could that be? Okay, here's my other question. Okay, so when you were like saying that the earth was formless and void, does that mean that there was like literally no matter? And then when you spoke, all of a sudden there was matter. Bam. You know, big, like the Big Bang, like boom, boom. I suppose if God spoke that into existence in that moment, that would probably be loud, right? I don't know. But boom, all of a sudden it was there. You know, is that how it was done? Now, here's another one I want to know. Exactly how old is this? I mean, I want to know exactly how old it is. When did you, I want to know. You know, and here's what I notice. Doesn't say anything about it. There's virtually no detail about how any of it happened. Just that it did happen and who was responsible. It basically told anybody that was in earshot, look, you see all of this? You see it all. You see the sky. You see the space between the sky. You see clouds. You see water. You see birds. You see stuff. There's everywhere you go, there's something alive. You know who did that? It was God. He's responsible for this. He was intentional. The Bible really gives you very, very, very little of the how, and mostly just points to who. And it asks you to take it in faith that this God we speak of was the one behind it all. I want to know how. I really do. I got all these questions. And the Bible tells me I'm not here for that. I'm not a science textbook to prove to you exactly how every single tiny thing came to be and came together, and which parts of the periodic table were used in this process, and exactly how hot was the earth when it was first created, and what is in the center anyway. Is it creamy filling inside? It just doesn't say, because that's not the point. It's a faith account. And what faith asks a person to do is to say, look, you actually are incapable of comprehending all of this at work. And so where your science ends, faith begins. And you will actually have to just take my word for it. Trust me that I did it. Which is really hard to do sometimes, isn't it? Yeah? I mean, isn't that kind of how a lot of us are geared? A lot of us are wired. Some of you are like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to understand anything. I don't care. I don't care how old it is. Not interesting to me. That's fine. But you love somebody who does like that stuff. You care about somebody who is a little interested, a little inquisitive. And it's a mistake to take the faith count and say, well, what we're going to do is, I understand that you can't take this in faith, so what I'm going to do is set out to prove scientifically that it's all exactly this way, it's all exactly this old, and on and so forth. And we're going to have, better buckle up, sit down, because we're going to have to give you a course in DNA chemistry, and we're going to have to, we're going to have to geologically age rocks and stuff, and we're going to have to get out the carbon dating process and prove that all to you. Actually, it's not intended for that. It's an account of faith. The idea is, faith is the opposite of proof. Faith comes through hearing. Faith is when God speaks to you in some way or another and says, look, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I am about, and you hear it, and honestly, you don't prove your way into it. You have to stop and recognize, I can't actually understand everything. That is what faith asks us to do. To say, I can't understand. I can't prove it out for myself. Actually, when they got in, remember the Adam and Eve? You remember those guys? Little guy and a girl. You remember them? One was kind of a Hulk, the other was kind of pretty, and they got together, and Okay. When they got into trouble was when they said, well, God did say it was this way, but I need to prove this all out for myself before. I trust him, but I need to verify. I trust him that I should not be trying to experience all that there is to experience in the world and just decide for myself. I trust that it's probably a bad idea, but at the same time, I think I'll test it out myself. And then I'll know. There was the beginning of the broken relationship when that happened. Now, here's the thing. I like science. Science is really cool. And honestly, some of you are like, I don't like science. Science is my enemy. Yeah, and you didn't use electricity this morning? Right? I mean, you didn't turn the heat on? No, actually, I think you do like science. You ever had a vaccination? I think you're perfectly okay with it. Maybe not all of them. That should be said. You don't have to be enemies. Here's what science is. This is amazing. Science is a tool. Science is where you get to say, I think that the cause of a certain something is actually something. And I'm going to set out and test it. And the only way that you can test it is, of course, if you can control the environment, recreate the environment that you think led to the something, and be able to observe all of the somethings that are taking place within your little test, and be able to repeat it over and over and over again. And the more that you can repeat it over and over and over again is more consistent proof that your idea was true. Or sometimes it's not. So then you got to have a whole different idea, or you got to adjust a little something and try that. And, it's kind of a guess and it really is guess and check. I mean, you guess and then you check. And there is a major problem with trying to use science to prove or disprove the supernatural. Here is issue number one. If God did something and was supposedly the cause, how do you recreate that? How do you control God to get God to do the same thing again at your whim? How do you do that? Well, you can't. You can't. I mean, if you can control God, I guess God isn't really God. That's a problem. You have to be able, here's another issue, you have to be able to observe enough of what went into something in order to recreate it. Well, if the something is supposedly like 10 bazillion years ago, and people have only been on the earth for so and so many thousand years, and they've only been thinking about this for the last 200 or 300, you have a problem. Because there's no data. There's no way to observe any of what went into the situation. You have no idea what the factors are. Good science is very cautious about the quality of its work. Very cautious about the quality of its work. If you can't recreate the situation, you can't actually observe all of the factors. And number three problem is you can't actually comprehend all of the things that are going on. So you can't control God, so you can't actually, say, okay, the experiment begins now. Create the earth. God, go. God, go. You can't do that. And then you have to realize you can't go back and you can't factor in all this stuff. And then, it gets worse. You can't comprehend it all. You're actually dealing with factors that are beyond a human's mind to be able to comprehend and piece all together. You're finite. Your brain is finite and limited. One time, I heard this story told a certain way. It said, a man got drunk, and he was coming out of a party, went out to his car, and then forgot something, went back inside the house, came back out again, couldn't find his keys. And so the host of the party said, well, did you check everywhere? He looked outside. Of course, there were some street lights shining down in just a few places around the car. He said, yes, I checked everywhere. Well, no, you didn't. Because you only checked the places that you could see. You assume your ability to comprehend and observe everything that there is to comprehend and observe. The problem is if there's anything that's outside of your ability, it's not going to be part of your equation. Here's another issue. Miracles, or God's intervention, is supernatural, right? It's outside of what's supposed to happen, according to the rules. God stepped in and boom, created stuff, right? By the sound of his voice. Even the theories that are out there, they all say it couldn't have happened. Even if it wasn't God, if it was some space alien from years ago or something that stepped in. Science, if you look at the physics and the philosophy of it, it's not possible for something to be created from nothing unless something else steps in, brings something, and then explodes it out somehow. Just not possible. Can't have something from nothing. We test it all the time. Can't have something from nothing. But apparently just this one time there was. Just this one time. Of course, you can't test for it, so you can't prove it. But, I know some of you are starting to get grumpy. I know. You're like, I don't care. You know someone that does. You know someone that does. So many issues. And so, what happens, this is what happens. People who love science and practice science will step into an area of faith and say, because we have all of this science that says so and so, I can prove that the earth was not created this way. And the truth is, there isn't really any science that you have that's legitimate good science to be able to prove something the way that it happened 4.5 billion years ago that would discredit you. You just don't have it. And then what happens is, this is my favorite but least favorite part, we say, well, it's generally accepted that it did. It's generally accepted. Wait, what? What? That's my favorite part. You see, this is what happens when science goes from good to bad science. When good science, legitimate science, goes to sloppy science, what happens is they say, well, in the absence of being able to prove a thing, I will just tell you that I think this is true, and most people that are smart agree with me. It sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound bad? Whenever you hear the words generally accepted, the lights should go off. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know, there's a little glass bell-shaped thing with a light bulb inside my head that says, well, scientists generally agree. Wait, generally? Wait, which ones do and which ones don't? Could you name some names? You know, is this a statistic that you took? I mean, what is this? Generally accepted is a red flag, and it's a symbol that just says, there are a lot of smart people out there who are smarter than you, and they all think this is true, so your word, their word, they're right. I should use that more often. I really should. Somebody comes to me with marital trouble or something, like, well, I think this is true, yes, but it's generally accepted amongst my peers that you should give me money. Wait, what? What's generally accepted? It's what everybody else is thinking. I mean, isn't that convincing to you? Well, everyone else apparently is thinking this, so you should think it too. It doesn't really work. That's like the total opposite of science. That's actually asking you to leave science behind and just take something in faith because somebody says that it's so. See, that's where science gets into trouble, when it starts to step into matters of faith and said, all right, listen, we can't prove it. This is what we believe about your faith. We can't prove it, so we're just asking you to take it in faith, what we say is true about what you believe. That doesn't work for me, that doesn't work for you, that doesn't work for anybody. But before the Christians get off the hook, oh, you Christians, you also have to be careful. Because many times what happens is, under all of the pressure of the perception that is brought to you, actually mostly by the media, not by people who are practicing science themselves, but people who are trying to interpret the results of science for you, mostly under the threat and the weight and in the face of all of that, Christians get a little unnerved. And they say, okay, fine. We'll play by your game then. If you don't want to believe what we believe in faith, then we're going to prove to you what we believe using science. And we're going to prove to you how old the earth really is. We're going to prove to you, that this is how the flood affected the earth. We're going to prove it. And immediately, you're stepping out of faith, and all of a sudden you're assuming all the same problems that the supposed science community already has with what they're trying to do. You're trying to play by their game and say, well, we know that this is true, and we can, we've got carbon dating that says this is true, and all of a sudden you're actually causing people around you to believe that if they're not like real nerds about this stuff, then their faith doesn't stand a chance. I mean, how many of you want to become DNA scientists? How many of you want to become, accredited professors of biochemistry and geology and all that stuff? Okay, there's like a half a person in here that wants to do that, and he's 5 years old. The rest of you probably don't want to do that, or you'd already be doing it. And I believe, this is my belief, okay, take this in faith. I believe it's a mistake to teach our people that unless you can prove and explain and walk people through the entire process of geology and formation and DNA sequencing and the Genome Project and all of that stuff, your kid's not going to be able to grow up to be able to defend their faith. Everybody's going to think they're silly and they're not going to be... No, stop it. Stop it right now. No. I think that stuff's really interesting. And sometimes there are some cool discoveries that come alongside and they appear to just agree. They agree with the sentiment, God made this stuff. And it would appear there was some sort of, worldwide extinction event. It would appear that, yep, that seems to be. But as soon as they get into the weeds and there's an argument, you just about can bank on it that somebody's misbehaving and somebody has stopped playing by the rules that they're supposed to play by. As soon as somebody says, I can disprove the supernatural, no, you really can't, because science isn't made to handle the supernatural. Science studies and proves the real in the natural. It has no accounting for things that step outside of the rules, come in and change things. You can't test for that. The question is, well, what do you do? Well, you listen. You consider it for yourself. You look at the evidence that you see. You look at the experiences that you've had in real life. You look at the creation. You look at the sky and the stars and the trees and the planets and the sun, and you look at all this stuff. You look at your own heart. And you ask yourself, do I believe this? Or don't I? That's the question of faith. If you're waiting for complete proof before you have faith, you need to know that's not faith. You've left faith behind. And if you're afraid of science because of your faith, I'm telling you, you shouldn't be. And actually, the scientific community needs people of faith involved. One of the most respectable, faith-filled Christians out there, actually, this guy is the head of the Genome Project. And I mean, we're talking about a level of intelligence that you and me, we're like little kids, we're just not cut out for that. and people often ask him, how can he believe in a Jesus at the same time being as intelligent as he is and knowing all of these things that can be proven and seeing how science is amazing? And his answer to it is frequent and pretty much the same all the time. He says, how could I not? How could I not? I haven't seen anything that I've studied or proven or tested. Nothing that I've seen has disproven anything that I believe. I don't see proof. How could you prove that God isn't there? You can't even do that. Why? Because he's a good scientist. We just have to learn to play within our bounds and not give in to the temptation to try and make a statement about something using bad faith or bad science. Because, well, it's embarrassing. Don't do that. No, but seriously, I just want to bring it home for a second. I know this stuff is whatever. To some of you, I get it. I get it. But here's the truth. There are lots of people out there that have been raised, including my generation, raised with the perception that science is proving Christianity to be just a mythological hoax from yesteryear because of all these advances. I'm like, no, I know what good science is. And I've seen a lot of good science, but as soon as you start trying to make it say something that it can't actually handle proving, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Let's use faith for what it's for. Let's use science for what it's for. And not get all worked up about the details in between. We don't need to be at war. You got something to prove with science. Prove it with science. Prove it. Prove it. That's your burden as a scientist. Prove it. And if you have faith, don't get caught up in having to become the Human Genome Project chair. Because you forget you're leaving faith behind when you do that. It's okay. It's okay to look into that stuff. Go for it. Look into that stuff. But as soon as you start thinking that this is how you're going to cause people to believe, making a mistake. Making a mistake. That's all I have for you this morning. And the good news is, if you don't like science, we're not talking about science next week. I will see you all next week. I appreciate your being patient with me this morning, especially if you don't like it. If you do like it, come on up, give me a high five, But that's what I've got for you this morning. I will see you next week. And if you're looking to get into groups of any kind or interested in how you can get connected, stop in and see me at the studio on your way out. All right? I'm going to pray for you. Father, thank you for this patient group of humans who have endured thinking and hearing about some of these ideas. God, we thank you for the miracles that you have made. Some of us have had personal miracles where you've stepped in and gone beyond the natural, gone beyond what is possible to do something that is and should be impossible. And we remember those things. We hang on to those events. And we thank you for those times. We thank you for the advances. We thank you that you put into us thinking, rational, logical minds that are creative, that seek out answers to things. We thank you for the people that you've gifted with those things that go to town and just get into it. And we've got all these advances. We have electricity and vaccines, and we have medicines, and we have airplanes, and we have all. I mean, God, I'm so impressed with what you created and the reflection that mankind can be in its creativity and its adaptive nature. I'm so impressed, and we're thankful, God. Help us to see where faith begins and our own ability ends. And help us to understand, help us to make peace that we cannot understand everything that there is to be known. We can't actually comprehend everything. Now, God, I pray you would destroy the perception that we have to be at war about what's true and isn't true in areas that have nothing to do with faith. I pray, Lord Jesus, you would strengthen our faith right where we stand today and help us to help somebody else who is dealing with these same questions. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, I'll see you next week.